This is going to be a pretty short review, partially because I don't have a whole lot to say about this book, and partially because I'm just really hungry. So here's Elantris, or Elantris. There's not good lighting in here, but it's Elantris.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
Elantris is actually the first book that was ever published by Brandon Sanderson, who, if you haven't seen my reviews of the Stormlight Archives, I'm a pretty big fan of his. And I think that, as far as first novels go, this is really good, but it's nowhere near the level of his other work overall. So the premise of this story is that there was this city called Elantris, and it was home to, like, these demigod-like people who had all these crazy magic powers, and, you know, their skin glowed, their hair was silver, and they were basically immortal, and it was really, really just great for everyone around them. You know, the whole country was prosperous, and everyone loved them. But then around 10 years ago, something happened, and now all the Elantrians just went from being these crazy demigods to these half-dead abominations. Like, their skin went gray, and their hair falls out, and their magic doesn't really work anymore, and they can't die. Like, you know, if they get stabbed or something, they still feel pain, and they will still have an injury, but they won't die at all. And so the people freaked out, and they just started shutting all the Elantrians into the city, and everyone that turned into an Elantrian, because it happens randomly, they just put them in the city and left them there. The story follows three major characters. Like, there's a couple others thrown in there, but it's mainly just three. Now, there's Raoden, who is the Prince of Arelon, which was the country that Elantris was in, and at the very beginning of the book, he gets turned into an Elantran, and so they throw him in the city, and his story is mostly about him trying to survive in the city, as well as, like, get the other people to start working together and band together, and also him trying to figure out what exactly caused all this, like why the Elantrians are getting all fucked up. The second person is Juden, who is actually a foreign princess who was supposed to be his fiancé, but after he gets thrown in the city and they actually tell the public that he died, and Juden also hears that he died, and she is mostly concerned with trying to prevent an invasion from the Empire of Fjordell, or, yes, Fjorden, sorry. I'm sorry, it's actually been like 3 weeks since I read this book. I just haven't had the chance to film this review until now. And the third main character is Hrathen, and he is like a high priest of Fjorden, and he's actually trying to take over the country without resorting to violence, which is it's a lot more interesting than I thought it would be. And out of the three, I think Hrathen is my favorite, because he has a really unique view on things, and he also has a really good character arc where he goes from being this, you know, villain, he's a guy you can understand where he's coming from, and you don't think he's really evil, but he is still the villain, to something else. And you're never really quite sure where he stands, and overall, yeah, like I said, he was definitely my favorite part of this book. Other than Hrathen, the other characters are fine, you know. Raoden is super optimistic, and he's super good at inspiring other people to be better than they thought they could be, but, you know, he's not a super deep or complex character, I don't think. You know, he's super likable, and I wouldn't really call him relatable, but he's good. Juden is kinda, sorta like Raoden, only she falls more into relatable, where, like, you know, you see that she has some issues with her self-confidence, but not too many. Like, she understands that she's an intelligent person, but she also understands that most men in that world don't really want an intelligent, strong-headed woman. They want someone that's really submissive and will do what they say. And so that causes her own issues, but also at the same time, she's really determined to help out Arelon and to help out the people there. And you always get the impression that she's a smart person. You never feel like, oh, okay, this dumb bitch is doing something. Beyond that, the major thing I liked was the mystery about what happened to the Elantrians and their magic. Like, there's a whole lot of little clues spread throughout to figure out what went wrong, and at the end, when they reveal it, you realize, oh, okay, that makes sense, actually. Okay, yeah. And it fits into the same category as most other Brandon Sanderson books, where at the climax, like, everything happens at once, so you're just bombarded with, oh shit, that happened, that was cool, oh, what, that was awesome, what? And then there's a bunch of cool battles and stuff, and the climax in this was a lot better than I was expecting, especially considering that most of the story doesn't really revolve around combat or war or fighting. the way something like the Stormlight Archives does. But, hey, this one pulled it off. Not much else to say, really. Like, this is a fairly long book, like it's over 500 pages, but it's not that complicated. You know, it doesn't have a whole lot of really complex political maneuvering. It doesn't have a whole bunch of different countries all coming together, and it doesn't have a whole lot of adventures for the main heroes to go on. It's just a pretty simple, down-to-earth book, which has some really neat stuff in it, and it has a beginning, a middle, and end. Like, there's no sequel or anything to this, and, you know, it's just kind of refreshing to see that in fantasy. You don't see that a whole lot. So if you're looking for a gigantic, multi-volume epic, then this isn't your thing, but if you want something a little shorter, a little more personal, then give it a shot.